Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to Friday Night Live. And tonight we will be live with Imam Khalid Latif from New York. And it's such a pleasure to be here without Mufti Abdul Wahab. When he's here, he's taking all the spotlight. He always has so many things to share and never allows me to, express my emotions and my thoughts. But we miss him today. Honestly, he's on his way to Aqsa, so we pray that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala takes him safely. And he's with his wife and his child baby Abdul Rahim. Hafidhullah, may Allah protect the kid. They're all on the way with a group of almost 100 people to Masjid al-Aqsa. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make that journey a means of barakah, a ease for the Muslims in Palestine, Muslims across the world. And may Allah accept their supplications. So I want to welcome everybody from wherever they're joining. I see some people joining from Australia, Florida. I see some people. Sister Khadija is joining from all the way from England. First time I met her and her family, her father, in London over the weekend. So let me bring on our guest, and then we'll have a casual conversation. And we have a very important topic tonight. If you don't see the energy in my voice, know that the energy is deep down in my heart. So bear with me. Imam Khalid Latif will bring the energy, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Imam.
Walaikum salam, rahmatullah.
How are you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for joining Friday Night Live. It's not your first time. It won't be your last time. And every time we have you in person or live, it's a pleasure. It's such inspiration watching the work that you do at NYU and all the hard, difficult work in such a difficult climate. I'm not saying it's like we don't have the struggle, but your struggles are different. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you strength. And how's your family?
Barakallah feek. Yeah, alhamdulillah, everyone's doing well. We're just trying to keep up with everything you all are doing at Miftah, mashallah, in Michigan. Make dua for us, inshallah.
Ameen. How are your kids?
They're doing well, alhamdulillah. Just put them to bed right before this.
Yeah, it's late, 9:30, like so late. Sheikh, well, Imam, where have you been traveling this summer? And what's up? I haven't heard from you that much this summer.
We've been a few places, alhamdulillah. I was just in Toronto, going to New Mexico in a week.
Wow.
With Sheikh Dawood Yassin. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's now in Austin, mashallah.
You should be at Zaytuna.
Yeah, so there's a beautiful masjid there. It's called Dar al-Islam. And they used to host a lot of Deen intensives and other programs there back in the day. So we're trying to revive a lot of that history. So we're going to be taking people, getting them acquainted to just aspects of nature and things as such. So it'll be good.
It's like a nature retreat.
It's a nature retreat, but embedded within different classes that we'll be doing and some things. But we're doing hikes. We'll be kind of taking them through these various trails, helping to teach solitude, in a very real way, these kinds of things.
I know Imam Dawood, he's really big on that. And now added you coming from the Big Apple, with a big, busy, nonstop world. The city never sleeps. And the work that you're doing at the university there is now never ending. So now everyone needs a little time alone and just to reflect. But also is very therapeutic and spiritual. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your going out and everyone that goes with you. Imam, we were in London, and I really wish you were with us last week. And it was such a beautiful journey to see the Muslims in England. And they're not much different than us in the challenges and their contributions to society. A community that's been there a little longer than Muslims in America, much to learn from them and their struggles. It's great to see so many institutions, so many masajid, so many Muslim communities established there, seeing their generations now doing the work. But I still have to say there's a lot of work that needs to be done on both sides of the sea in America, and here on this side and on the other side of the ocean there in England. And if we can work together, have this energy and synergy together, we can do a lot of work, because there are institutions built there that we don't have to invent the wheel again. We can just learn from them, from their mistakes and all that. So very good community. And I feel like someone like you has so much to offer that community. And I'm sure the scholars of England have so much to offer us in America. So that was a good trip. And I moved to Doha the whole time, was talking about Imam. I wish we had Imam Khalid with us. Imam Khalid would be excellent. So I don't know how to get this commitment from you now, but definitely in the future we can't travel without you.
Yeah, next time let me know, inshallah. I'd love to go. I used to go to the UK a lot and different parts of Europe, and then post COVID and other things getting in the mix, just haven't really gone. But it's beautiful there, mashallah. And you really sincere brothers and sisters doing amazing things.
The cars and the roads are small. Was that a situation? What do you?
Did you drive?
I didn't, but I felt like I was in a Lego movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's different. It's crazy. Mashallah.
Like you don't see the cars that are made in Michigan and England a lot. Like all these Ford F-150s, 250s, these big Ram trucks. You don't see them much in England.
Yeah, you're not in Ford country, man. When you go to the UK, it's
It's
different.
all European.
Yeah, yeah. It's no joke.
I like it, and I saw so many European cars. I'm like, man, these guys. Then they click. I was like, man, I'm in Europe. That's why. Alhamdulillah. So, Imam, we know tonight's session is about being in the company of the righteous people, and how has it been through your life? And just before we go into the lecture aspect, but how much benefit have you received in being in the company of salihin, righteous people? It's just I know there's this underlining feeling that we can't speak about, we can't express. But what has it been through your life, and how eager are you in searching for such company?
Yeah, Bismillah. I mean, to be in the presence of somebody who is truly righteous, right? I think it's important to define these terms.
Hmm.
And if we were to understand what it means for someone to be righteous, we could look at what does it mean to not be righteous. And if we were to juxtapose someone who is salih with what is the opposite of it, I think you think about somebody who creates facade, for example, right? Because to be in a state of righteousness means that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. It's in a very set order of being. And you have then its alternative, which is just chaotic. And if you've been with somebody who, mashallah, has not just outward, but inward righteousness, they're just in this place of stillness, like somebody who's a really good Muslim, mashallah, and just being in their company, you find peace. You can really take from their suhbah and allow for yourself to just remove the agitation of the world, because their stillness is now something that resonates and echoes with you. And I think it's something that is a very necessary ingredient in qualifying the company that we keep. And I know for me, for example, some of the people that I just love spending time with are people who have that characteristic. That when you're with them, they're just good people.
Mhm.
There's no other way to be able to identify and define who they are. And that goodness emanates outwardly and inwardly. And it helps to just make sense of a world that sometimes doesn't have so much sense to it. Gives you aspiration. You want to work towards kind of getting to where some of these people are. Even if you might not ever reach it, you now have something that is exemplary that you want to actually have aspiration towards getting to.
Absolutely, absolutely. In my company, in my life, I just when you sit with the pious persons, it's hard to define who's pious and who's not. Like you can't. That's not our job. That's Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's judgment. But I remember recently, I met three people. I'm not going to go through their names, but you know, I met 3, 4 people recently who are scholars, righteous people. MashaAllah, Allah knows best how pious they are, and I felt a very similar synergy in their demeanor, like their very similar attitude in what they were doing. There was like this connection, and there was this attitude. And I try to think about what was it in these three people. Like you meet um, 10 rich people, entrepreneurs. What is common in these people? They're risk takers, or they're psychopaths, because even to be successful, there has to be a psycho element to it, where you kind of ignore family and you prioritize wealth and career. There's this, not all of people are like that, but so what is a common denominator in these 3, 4 people that I met, and I feel that I felt something from them? It's something special, right? They're knowledgeable people. I meet knowledgeable people all the time. And I felt one of my friends who was sitting there, one of my students, he said to me, Sheikh Abdullah, I met 3, 4 waliullahs, awliya, in the last couple of months. I said, wow. And I said, well, am I included in those, that category? Like, he's my student, and he's like, he was trying to be respectful and stuff like that. He's like, I don't know, Sheikh, but there's something about these 3, 4 people. And he said something really interesting. And I was feeling the same way almost. He said, they don't have any worries. The worries. And I felt like, wow.
Yeah.
And he said, Sheikh Abdullah, you're always stressed. So I can't put you in that category. He's like, you're always thinking about something, like as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the world work for these people. Everyone is just working, moving. Big things happen for these people, movements, shifting, life decisions. But there's like this calmness in their demeanor with this ocean of calamity surrounding them. There's just, in the middle of the storm, there's this calm person. And I said, man, that is exactly how Allah describes awliya. Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun.
Yeah.
Amanu wa kanu yattaqun. Subhanallah. It's just, you sit with, now they're so powerful in their experience with their lack of huzn, which is like lack of overwhelming stress. Everyone has a level of it. And then I realized that they're so powerful in this experience that they're disseminating that level of itminan, peace in their heart to anyone that meets them. You shake their hands, you sit in their gathering, you hear them say a few words, all the worries of the world become so insignificant. And akhirah is magnified, and the worries of akhirah are magnified. And I found that to be very, these are not people that, I'm sure if they're walking on the street, no one will recognize them as a big sheikh. Oh, big sheikh is walking here, please bring them in, ask them for the dua. But they definitely had that one thing in common. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that type of company.
Ameen, ameen.
The salihin, and we can resonate, their nur of their heart penetrates into our hearts. I wish that happens to all of us.
Yeah, and this is, language is very important, right? Like if you look at when Allah speaks to us about the abrar, right? The ones who are righteous, they honor rights, duties, right? And Surah Baqarah, when it defines like what is bir, even etymologically, the word bir, its root, barara, has the derivation of bar, which is land. And when you think about land in the context of rights and righteousness, especially in a contextualized Meccan experience, a kind of experience in the Hijaz, it's quite often paired with like bahr, right? Like you're in a body of water that doesn't have the same stability. There's different hazards to the water. There's a literal like sense of movement and instability, and the ground is giving you a different sense of actual being grounded. It creates for you this sense of balance that's there. And this is the relationship between one who actually has righteousness. They're from the abrar. They're in that state of groundedness, the way that bar is like ground, it's earth. They have this sense of stability to them. And the things that the Quran tells us to adopt in order to bear this characteristic and increase in this value, both for the benefit of those who keep company with us, as well as for our own benefit, so that you can walk through the earth with a certain sense of dignity and grace, that things don't knock you down or push you over, because you're in this state of balance. And I think what you're saying is really remarkable. And there's shuyukh, man, who, whenever I know they're any place close and I can just sit with them, right? And they're not, and people really miss out on these opportunities because, there's a difference between education and entertainment, right? And may Allah make us those who really seek out true knowledge, and not just engage in things with our deen as kind of a pastime or a hobby. And they'll pass up on so many people because their accent isn't kind of what they're looking for,
Wow.
or they might not necessarily speak with a certain kind of flair, but they're in this place where they are so present, and they're adopting prophetic characteristics where our Prophet ﷺ, he didn't talk so much. People just were able to be around him and take from him and his composure, right? Kana ahlam an-nas. He was the most forbearant of people. Like, why did people notice this? Why were they things that they were taking from him? They were feeding off of that in a very chaotic, agitated world. The presence of those types of people are going to impact your heart, and they're a part of your spiritual diet.
Subhanallah. That was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ahlam an-nas. He was so composed, it says he was daim sukut. He was like, he was always silent unless he had to say something good. And subhanallah, that is a very powerful quality. As we journey this discussion, in the United States, in the West, even people who are joining us from the East, it's our duty to find righteous people for ourselves and for our children. Today, there's companies of so much, you said the word abrar, right? Inna al-abrara lafi na'im. And then Allah said,
Mhm.
al-fujjara lafi jahim. So you have the company of the fujjar, these people who don't, aspire to be righteous. I have rough time saying who are not righteous, but they don't struggle to be righteous. They have their own inner struggles. Those people's companies, you sit there for like 20 minutes, 1 hour, you walk out with your heart, you've even if you're not doing what they're doing, you get affected. You sit with
Mhm.
anybody that likes cars, not a bad, I like cars, you like cars. They start talking about cars, you have no clue about thinking about cars, but you start thinking like, wow, that's a nice car. That's something I want to think about. That's something I want to purchase. Anybody that talks about homes, anybody that talks about luxury, anything of this dunya, it impacts your heart. There's not a person that sits in a gathering of dunya and the discussion of dunya, even at a passive level, whose heart is not being impacted. We are humans. We're influenced at a certain level, and even we say we know I'm not interested, but there's a level of interest that's making us curious. Similarly, on the same level, you sit with some righteous people, and you don't take one note. You don't you don't have even any intention to practice what they're saying. Because just on the opposite side, you had no intention to buy a nice car. You're just sitting there passively. You're just a fly on the wall, observing the righteous people's company. It's such a powerful environment that today it may not impact you, but tomorrow something's going to touch you. You might not even know that the next salah you prayed had a different khushu'. The next dua you made had tears flowing. And you may say, oh, the tears are flowing because so and so. No, it has to do with the state of heart, and the heart state has to do with the states of other people's hearts. You
Mhm.
surround yourself in hearts which are soft and close to Allah. You just being there makes you so soft. A lot of times people say it's the Kaaba that affects people's hearts and makes them soft. I said it's 100% true. There's no stronger magnetic force of righteous experience around than the Kaaba. أول بيت وضع للناس الذي ببكة مبارك. But doesn't it tell us, the Kaaba is also the place of all these hearts which are broken, you
Mhm.
know? And so the Kaaba is special, right? But remember that there was a time that there were people who would walk around the Kaaba nude without clothes on.
Yes,
There were
subhanAllah.
idols around the Kaaba. So the Kaaba's sanctity was there, but the environment wasn't sanctified anymore. Now you go there and you see people crying and weeping and repenting. You're like looking at the Kaaba, and you're looking at all that echoes, that whole environment impacts your expression, and your repentance becomes inevitable, and then you start changing the trajectory of life. So I really feel that silence in the company of awliya, just silence in the company of pious people, even parents, there's a degree of relationship even our parents have with Allah. As humans, we see them as parents with flaws, correct? And
Mhm.
there might be another person that we see, like our wife or our husband, full of mistakes. Day and night, we're arguing, but they have this, like independent connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You never know their wilaya, their relationship, their du'as, how much they impact us because that relationship they have with Allah and in our experiences with them. And in the in the Prophet's community, there's this major story, and if you can add on to this, that really summarizes. There's one verse, and it's placed in the Quran in Surah Tawbah, and it's the highlight of the argument and discussion of people who are in the spiritual world who try to encourage people to find good company. And that is, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. O you who believe, amanu, ittaqullah, fear Allah. So we got this, we got to get to the fear of Allah. Never does a command of God appointed upon us, legislated upon the believer, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah, except there is a process of getting to the taqwa. And the process of that is kunu ma'as sadiqin. Be with those. What the kunu ma'as sadiqin. Like, you just keep yourself wherever they go, just follow them, right? They go east, go east. They go west, they go west. Wherever they're going. If you see the people at night today, where are the righteous people going? Probably for Isha Salah, right? So you want to be there in Jannah with them, in al-abrar rafi na'im, follow their movements. And you said something so powerful, because a lot of times their simplicity, their accent, their lack of ability to communicate in the language or the experiences that we have, we distance ourselves from them. In the story of Tabuk, Imam Khalid, it's so interesting. This ayah is in the end of Surah Tawbah. Now, the whole Surah Tawbah, Allah is super angry by his demeanor and language in the Quran. He's saying, قُلْ نَارُ جَهَنَّمُ وَشَدُّ حَرًّا. Tell them fire of hell is more hot or much more scorching than the heat of this world. He says, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ. These hypocrites, the bottom of hell. And then he says, لا تقم. Don't pray on the hypocrite. لا تصلي على أحد منهم مات أبدا. استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم. إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة. You pray for a munafiq or a disbeliever 70 times. I won't forgive them. I'm not going to. لن يغفر الله. And then there's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Then he puts the story of 3 people in the Quran, وَعَلَى الثَّلَاثَةِ الَّذِينَ خُلِّفُوا, that didn't participate in the campaign of Tabuk. These are righteous people. Righteous people might have an excuse to say, I cannot commute with the righteous people. No. They were held back clearly for a material cause. For the 9th year, so think about the whole Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the last year of the 23rd year. This is either the second last year or the last year of the Prophet's life. Your whole life in 20 years, 21 years, you've been giving your life to the Prophet ﷺ, and you missed out this opportunity. Excusable, right? They didn't go to Tabuk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he's saying to these 3 people, I forgive you. قَدْ تَابَ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. Allah says, I forgive these people. These three people that stayed back, I forgive them. Allah forgave them after 40, 50 days. But the case isn't closed, because this is going to happen again. Allah is saying to Hilal, Marar, and Ka'b ibn Malik, the issue wasn't the money that you stayed back for, the orchards, the animals, the wealth. That's not the issue. The issue was you didn't stay in the company of those who are righteous. Mm-hmm. Where did they go? If the righteous people of Medina leave Medina for a cause, you got to go with them. You got to stay in the company. They got in trouble for staying back in Medina, even though their intention, but it doesn't matter. Righteous people, not righteous places. Mm-hmm. Places are sanctified by the righteous people. Medina is special because the Prophet ﷺ came there, he's buried there, and has his blessings. So that's my message to myself first. It's so important for even like scholars who think they're teachers, imams who are writing books. What are we doing for our own self-reflection, self-improvement in becoming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So I found that to be, because these Sahaba were Badris. Badr. They participated in Badr. You can't get better than this, right? Mm-hmm. This Tabuk journey with the Prophet. That's where Allah says, after the discussion of their mistake, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. Just stay with the righteous people. You won't fall in this trap again. How many times we make these wrong decisions? Business decisions, relationship decisions, sins. What is it? Wrong company. So that's what I wanted to share with you, Imam.
Yeah, I mean, and the verse that you're quoting, I think, is really important to reflect upon, where Allah is prefacing this to have taqwa, right? And if we were to give definitions that we can draw from the sayings of the companions of the tabi'een, that give us an idea of wakefulness to this, right? If, we were to give it a practical kind of illustration, taqwa is that mechanism that's within us that's telling us what's forthcoming that's going to be a problem, right? Taqwa is going to tell me, hey, like you're about to lie. Hey, you're about to gossip. There's a hole in front of you. Tawbah is the spiritual vehicle that Allah has enabled us to get out of the hole when we fall into it. And taqwa is the mechanism that tells us, hey, the hole is about to come.
Wow.
We have to be aware that it's there. And in a lot of verses, when we have this kind of phrase of, oh, people of Iman have this taqwa of Allah, and then it's connected to something.
Mm.
Rooted in that state of wakefulness, and be with those who are the sadiqeen, meaning that decision, that choice has to be a very conscious, active choice. And if we were to translate it now, right, like you and I are really privileged and blessed, alhamdulillah, in the work that we do, it gets us to be around amazing people quite often. Like my office is here and the musalla is right here, right? My office is here and where we pray Jummah is right here, right? It's all there. That's not what most people's days and routines are.
Amazing.
And there's a paradox to decision making that when you don't make a choice, you've essentially chosen.
Wow.
And a lot of people are not adopting this verse by consciously choosing the company they keep, but unconsciously they're still in the company of so many people. These people who are in their workplaces, who are driven by not ethics, but a compromise on ethics.
Wow.
They're rewarded, and their mobility in their company's kind of trajectory is rooted in being able to do the things that might hurt other people. There's not necessarily really anything. Even if you're sitting at home alone and you're watching television, there's like hardly anything you could watch on TV that is rooted in our deen's ethics and values. But you're in the company of these things, even if unconsciously. And you don't need anybody's permission to take their characteristics, to take on their demeanor, their personality. You don't even need your own permission to start falling into some of these things.
Wow.
And to move now from a place that says, for years, I have unconsciously been in the company of so many people. When have I deliberately determined on my own accord whose company I'm going to actively be in the presence of?
Wow.
What is it that I'm going to do? The examples that you even gave of going to the haram, standing in front of the Kaaba, right? These are by the invitations of our Creator, right? And may Allah accept from us and bless us to visit His house in Makkah al-Mukarramah and the illuminated city of our Prophet ﷺ again and again. But somebody still has to consciously make the decision to go to those places. It's not that I walk out of my apartment in New York and I just somehow stumble into Medina. There's a lot of effort that has to go to enable me to now be in the surroundings of those people. And every day, my routine is monotonous. There's no wakefulness to it. I'm on default settings. I'm not thinking about anything that's going to be uplifting my heart, let alone thinking, hey, this is what I'm actually keeping the company of. Even if they're not bad people, but they're in a place where they don't see the world the way that I'm inclined to see the world. I might be the only Muslim in my workplace. I might be the only Muslim in my classroom. I might be the only Muslim surrounded by many people who just the paradigm through which they understand the world is very different. How could it not have an impact on my heart? And the thing with light is that it takes just a little bit of light to push out darkness. So if you can implement into your routine an hour a week to be in the presence of those that you know are going to bring that softness to your heart, you can make this active choice. I'm going to be a person of taqwa, a person of wakefulness, a person of consciousness, a person who is aware of the presence of the divine, then is going to inform my literal state of being, right? That I will try to be with those who are people of truth, people who are of integrity, of good character, that I'll even distinguish between individuals who are my professors and who are my teachers. Because I can just take rote information from these people, but these people, they're actually telling me how to embody what it means to be a good human being.
Mm.
I'm taking from them something that's bigger than just the false realities of the dunya. But I got to wake up first to it and have an opportunity to say that the verse is saying you play an active role in choosing the choices that you make. You're deciding the decisions. Why are you spending so much time around the people that you're spending time with? But more importantly, why aren't you spending time with other people that you know when you're with them, they bring you a sense of just light. They bring you a sense of upliftment. You know that being in their presence helps you to not do things that are mindless and hurtful and causing problems in the world, but they're pushing you and challenging you, but also helping you to believe you can be your very best. And that verse demonstrates it really importantly, right? When you look at like the idea of keeping good company, most people today, if you were to ask them, especially men, in comparison to decades ago, how many actual deep friendships do you have?
Mm.
Some years ago, most people would say, especially adult men, the average answer was five. That trickled down to three. And today, the most common response is zero. That
What?
I have zero deep relationships. I don't have anybody that I'm actually really close to. So I'm pulling now from all these people that if I'm not close to them, then they're probably not close to me also. They don't have a concern or care for certain parts of myself that they're not necessarily thinking about. How am I feeling? What is it like for me when I go home at night? Who's asking me when I'm sick if I need anything? Or what is the condition of my parents? Like on this call, you have asked me before we went live and even after we went live, five times how my family is doing, mashallah. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? And think about this. There's a lot of people in the world who nobody ever asks them how they are doing, let alone how their families are doing. That's kind of the state that people are. And then they're in this place where unconsciously they're surrounded by people, but they feel so very alone all the time. Do
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does. You feel lonely. You
Yeah.
don't have any company. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us the true company of pious people. A lot of
Amen.
times, people think that people think good is going to come their way just naturally, like, oh, but what is a person who is not feeling well? What do they typically do? They look for a physician. They go to the one who has the properties, to the expertise of healing them in the medical field, right? Anytime you get sick, I take my kids, I take my mother, I take myself to urgent care, to ER, to the family practice. If a person is constantly physically not doing well, there's a major, major concern on this person's. Let's do a CT scan. Let's do MRI. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's get some blood work done. What is what and like they should, rightfully so. Nobody should ignore their medical condition. This is ni'mah from Allah. Allah says, must take care of your blessings that I give you. You know, the soul is also a blessing, and if not one of the greatest blessings from God. And it is amr of Allah. قُلِ الروح من أمر ربي. It's from the command of God. And there can be millions of studies on what does that actually mean. But remember, this body is useless without the soul. And the soul that's dead is useless to the body, because you're hurting yourself. And the poet says, يا خادم الجسم كم تسعى لراحته أتعبت جسمك فيما فيه خسران أقبل على الروح واستكمل فضائلها فأنت بالروح لا بالجسم إنسان. He said, the person that constantly tries to appease the body, khadim al-jism, like I'm serving myself, like I want to sit in the right chair, I want the right clothes. Like, it's not wrong to serve yourself, but so meticulous in everything we want. We want coffee, certain amount of sugar, so much cream. We struggle, go distances, sleep less, miss flights, you know, drive in conditions where we're fully like fatigued, all for the chase of the happiness of my body. One day I will be richer and I'll sit back on a recliner. My children can enjoy this valuable assets that I have. You've exhausted yourself. The poet says, "أتعبت جسمك فيما فيه خسران." I mean, you kind of exerted yourself in a lot of things which are going to be most likely a cause of remorse in this world and the next world, destruction. Sometimes Allah says, "وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ." This humans in a complete destruction. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَقْبِلَ الرُّوحِ وَاسْتَقْبِلْ فَضَائِلَهَا. It's so important to focus a little bit on the ruh. فَاسْتَقْبِلْ فَضَائِلَهَا فَأَنْتَ بِالروح. The ruh is who you are. The soul is who you are. لا بالجسم إنسان, not this human. So that has, so what is my processes in following through on and illnesses that are deep down in my heart, in my body, in my mind: jealousy, envy, hatred, and this type of like just an arrogant personality sometimes. What do we do to cure this? And it's really important to find a practitioner sometimes. Now, this practitioner doesn't need to know you that well, or know you. I'm not telling you go find a sheikh somewhere in the boonies, but it's something that we have to seek and search for, because just like a sick person goes out of their way, cancels office, cancels work, takes leave for their self well-being and their children's well-being. What about this soul that's constantly exposed to so many difficult elements of destructive behaviors around us? Lack of modesty, lack of integrity. All this is around us. Like you said, open the TV, open social media. Everything has been, all this is pixelated in front of our eyes. What are we doing to purify that? And I think that's a major concern, because I would say, just as a husband and wife who are watching, right? If all of our concern has been physical and financial and emotional, which is also important, there should be an element of concern about our spiritual healing. Now, I do believe Umrah with the family is a very powerful spiritual healing with the right guide and scholar. That's one way. I also believe journeys for studying knowledge, what you're going for this retreat in New Mexico. These are so important, guys. Even in the corporate world in America, they're realizing it's so important for CEOs, CFOs, high-level employees to take some breaks for their own self, because the better they are spiritually, emotionally, the better they can give to the company. How can you be a happy person when you always fear that I'm doing something wrong and is disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Just spiritually, you don't feel that level of joy. There's something you have to do. So I feel like that search has to be honest. And then the dua has to be honest. Oh Allah, help me. Find me someone that can help me. And you will find in your community around. And sometimes we don't find the right person in our community. What do? We fly down to Mayo Clinic, correct? We go to John Hopkins. We go to a place where there's an expert for this. LeBron James' son had a cardiac event situation. He's from LA. Doctors of the world will serve his son. He flies all the way to Minnesota, I think the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, right? Finds the perfect physician that he expects they can give him the best care, because Mr. James, LeBron, cares about his son's health, rightfully so. A heart that cannot function well physically, an athlete can't play. This guy's career is all athletic. A dead heart spiritually cannot function in a relationship, marriage, children, community. What are we going to do? We're just mummies, like literally we're walking around. So I really find there are ways for people to find some outlets, but I don't think this healing can happen individually, honestly.
Well, I think that's why like the programs you all do are really important, right? That you go to different countries, different cities, and in these gatherings, there's 500 people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people. But you can imagine now in some of the spaces that you're in, a good number of people, but there's also that person who's the only Muslim in their family. They converted and nobody knows they're a convert. and they've never been around that many Muslims before, right? They've never been in a space where they can feel those connections and interactions. There's, the kid who's trying to make sense of being the only religious minority in addition to being a racial minority in their private school that their parents who want them to have the best track to college have put them in. And they're an individual in a sea of people who are all very different from them. And it creates these dilemmas. And those spaces become important because somebody's heart being down is not something that necessarily is always a product of their own doing. But they get to a place where they embrace what they embrace, but the communal aspects of what our deen teaches us are not always so present, right? I can be the brick in the building that the Prophet ﷺ is describing that needs you for me to be held up, but I can also be the brick that is holding you up so that you are fit into the entire edifice in the way that it needs to actually take place. And thinking about our dual role there, that allows for us to think these things out, that says, hey, I do have something to offer. I do play a role. It is critical that I'm in this place of actual support and adopting that, because it's really hard for many people to be able to be Muslim in the world right now. There's a lot of different places that are both within the Muslim community and external to the Muslim community that just make it tough for people who are trying to just be with Allah to be with Allah, and to recognize that I can read the Quran. And there's entire sections that just give characteristics and passages of individuals who are amongst the best of Allah's servants, right? You were in the UK recently, subhanAllah, I went there some years ago. No, I was in Denmark. And I was in Denmark. I met with a lot of different groups. And one night I had dinner with a group of converts. And it was maybe like 8 people who were converts. They got together and they were all interacting with each other because the local communities didn't have an awareness of how to, let alone how to, they just didn't provide anything for them. There's one sister there, I still remember. She came from a Sikh background, Punjabi woman that converted to Islam. And as we were talking and she was sharing her story with me, she said, it took me 7 years to make the decision to become Muslim. And I said, why did it take that long? What was the struggle? And she said, everything in the religion made sense. The Quran made sense, the theology made sense, the practice made sense. She said, it just took me 7 years to find Muslims who actually resembled the Quran that I was reading.
Wow.
That there weren't people whose company I was in that made me feel like this was the religion for me. And it becomes hard. It becomes difficult when people want to have companionship. A sister came to our Jummah prayer, and she was from Switzerland or Germany. And she said, we've been listening to your podcasts for years. She also is a convert. And she said, this is the first time I've ever been to Jummah and actually understood what was being said. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, back home, there's no place that gives any type of programming, whether it's a Jummah khutbah, it's a dars, a halaqah, a class, that is in any language that I can understand. I said, well, where do all the converts go? And she said, there's no place for us to go. Nobody's thinking about us in that situation.
Wow.
And you think about what is the prophetic example about not putting the onus only on the person to create companionship for themselves, but the beauty of having a system of, the Ansar and the Muhajirun, buddying people up together, the foresight that it takes to create that kind of mechanism that says, doesn't matter if you all know each other, you're now brothers paired up together, people with people. But it doesn't translate in terms of communal existence. This idea that people are literally like departing from their entire lived experience to embrace what they know is the truth of Islam. And then they come into spaces, nobody talks to them. Nobody gives them salams. Nobody invites them to have iftar with them. Nobody invites them to celebrate on Eid. Who are you celebrating Eid with if your family is not Muslim? You know? And the righteous amongst us are the ones that have this thoughtfulness, this mindfulness, that Islam is much bigger than a shared cultural experience. It's much bigger than a shared racial, ethnic, socioeconomic experience. The companions of the Prophet salam, were of all different backgrounds, and there's a beauty in that. But being able to recognize how it is that he understands the needs of people and elevates them with a dignity that says, even if these people speak poorly about you, Bilal radiallahu an stands on the Kaaba to give the adhan. And the Mufassirin, they cite examples of individuals saying things that are disgusting, likening him to a black crow being on the Kaaba. You know, you have individuals who are just pushed out from all elements of society. Nobody wants to be in their company. The companion comes to take the had punishment for drinking alcohol. The Bedouin comes to urinates in the masjid. Individuals come who are just of backgrounds that nobody is engaging. And the Prophet says, you still have the rank of being my companion.
Yep.
Right? Like, you forget these people. You are my Sahaba, you know? And there's a certain just beauty, the husn of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in creating these things and examples for us, and why it's necessary at a time where I'm pretty sure, like in the UK where you just came from, like some years ago, they appointed a minister of loneliness in the government.
What?
Right? Like an actual governmental position that other countries have also replicated just because of how alone people feel, right? And how can somebody walk into a house of Allah and feel alone?
Wow.
You know, how can that be what it is that we're okay with? You know what I'm saying? And thinking about what the broader sense of our responsibility, it doesn't have to be everybody, but some people sitting down and saying, hey, it's not because of a lack of trying, but these people, they're not able to find the companions that they need because we're not stepping up to be in that role. You know, we're not really providing for them what it is that they need. You know what I mean?
It's a challenge because we come into the masjid and so many people there in big cities, especially even in small cities. We have to see the people there. We have to meet them. That's why that jama'ah aspect of salah with the jama'ah, it really makes you feel the pulse of the community. If you're in a community and you don't come to the prayer in jama'ah, you don't know what's happening all the way to Friday. But that's 7 days. Imagine not coming to work for 7 days. Like, so many things have happened every single day. Someone's born, someone's sick, someone's family passes away overseas. You're not in tune to what's happening. You don't know what the pulse of the community is. Now you come on Jummah, you want to congratulate someone, but you have to give condolence to someone. You're like, what's so much, especially in a large community. So that Jama'ah aspect, I really believe that the Prophet ﷺ built which Jama'ah means congregation of prayer. The Prophet ﷺ building the brotherhood and sisterhood in Medina, he did that in Makkah too. Like, people don't know this. He did that in Makkah. So when someone converted to Islam, he made Sahaba brothers. Like, hey, Abu Bakr and Sa'd, you guys figure this out, And then so a lot of times people talk about Madini period of brotherhood and companionship with Ansar and Muhajirin. That's second. The first was in Makkah. And it worked in Makkah and it worked in Medina. And the community took care of each other, especially the new converts to Islam. And a lot of times people think the convert aspect was maybe a financially good for them. It was socially good for them. It was. But more importantly, it was a spiritual boost. Imagine being the brother all of a sudden of Abdurrahman bin Auf. Man, imagine being the brother of like Sami Waqqas, the guy who gave his life in Makkah for 12, 13 years.
Wow.
SubhanAllah. So it's really, because you brought up the point, I really feel like even in America, sometimes we're searching for that one big pious person that's going to make dua for me and solve my problem. That's not what we should be shooting for. We should be looking for someone that's just a little bit better than us in some ways, in character, his suhbah. Someone who's more servant. Like, you see someone always going to soup kitchens, food pantries, caring for people, calling people, seeing people, visiting people. going out of their way for, like, even Ramadan, you see people serving a lot. Their generosity and compassion expressed. You can see the expression of that. Anything you see in sister, I see a sister all the time. She comes to the masjid early, or the in the musalla where you have the NYU. She sets up the chairs. She sets up the Jummah. She puts the water bottles. Why aren't you there? Like a lot of times in our communities, like people don't include us. Like, what do you mean including you? Just come a little early and just set up the chairs. What? There's no application. There's no membership for service. Now, I see what you're saying. They're not including you in decision making. Like, I don't think decision making is actually service. That's burden. You
Sure.
know, so they want that seat where, like, they can make financial and political decisions in the community centers. That's not where. I mean, that's rewarding, but that's not all it is. There's more than that. That's a 1 hour a month meeting of board members, which half an hour is just going back and forth and arguing, right? But the real work is on the ground. The real work is on the ground. Like, why are we waiting for someone to? And finally, when we get called to be a volunteer for something, like, oh, all these excuses. So it's really important that we find someone better than us in certain things, and then tomorrow, someone will look at us and say, "I want to be something part of their behavior too." Like, where no one, there's going to be a younger person that's going to look at us and say, Inshallah, I feel like to be like Imam Khalid one day. I want to follow his demeanor, his character, his service. People are watching and they're learning. Who else? There's no prophet going to come down, right? So we're all going to follow this pious person. Everyone's going to have mistakes. But that's important to find. In the best way to do this, if we have something to offer, and helping a convert, definitely. Someone who's vulnerable, someone who's not in the community really well, give them extra service, give them extra hand. And honestly, people can tell when we're genuine and when we're not genuine. That's really, people get this confused. Like, here, you want some money for your gas? Here, you want me to pay for your child's tuition? Don't, if you're making them feel that you're doing them a favor, please don't do it. That's not what they want. Like, I think people are so bad at doing this. They even make their wife and the children feel like I'm doing you a favor. Like, what favor are we talking about? We coexist and we're all equal. And God gave you something to bless someone with. Doesn't make you a better person, right?
Mm.
So, so in this aspect of helping someone, being genuine is another way of saying sincere. And nasiha, adinun nasiha. Just be sincere in your service. Like, please, like, whatever I can do for you, and anytime I can do it, however I can do it, I'm here for your service. Now, most importantly, they will need a lot of help. Like, everyone talks about financial converts need social, welcome. You look at our Ramadans, honestly, NYU is a little different. But if you look at our iftar dinners in most communities, they're very 1-2 ethnicity based organized events. A majority Desi community. I'm lucky to see a convert there, black person. Oh, wow, we finally see one like Somalian there, or like someone from Sudan. Oh, he's married to sister so and so's daughter from Pakistan. You're like, wow, they had to get married to one of the subcontinent member family for them to be invited to this iftar. Like, that, what do you mean by that? Bilal radiallahu anhu. And it doesn't matter. Of course, Sahaba's stories are the best. But why do we have to go that far? Even our weddings, our weddings, our weddings. How are our weddings looking? Weddings have to be more. Every single moment of our experience of Islam has to be more welcoming. How is it like, oh yeah, now these guys are calling us their brothers. We converted to Islam, or sisters. We haven't got one invitation for their child's graduation, one invitation for their daughters this, sons this, and then the list goes on and on and on and on. But where's the real true friendship and brotherhood? So I think we have to break those walls. I'm not saying break those walls, just open some doors so we can bring some clear, love and muhabba, and definitely welcoming people. In this argument, ma'am, I'm sure you hear it all the time. They're different. And like, they don't understand our culture. That's why we don't invite them. Our food is so spicy. We start late. They're different. Maybe they come from a poor class community, and this lavish banquet hall might make them feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable in our big homes. What is your answer to that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I will. I mean, it depends on who the person is that's saying it, but Ali radiallahu an, he has a famous saying of 3 people you should stay away from, right? And the second one that he says is you should stay away from the foolish person. You're talking about the ruh, the soul, and there's a different ability to be able to recognize the dignity of another human being, because they also have this beautiful soul and spirit within them. And we connected that level of shared internals, shared values, shared ethics, shared hearts. Many people just exist at the level of shared externals, right? And this is sociologically what happens. People crave similarity and familiarity,
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for individuals who are just like them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that I have a problem necessarily that you're different from me, but since my sense of self is not rooted in something concrete inwardly, I don't know how to be who I am unless everyone around me is exactly like me. And
Mm.
people make statements that sound like they have substance to them, but they're literally things that you're going to have to stand in front of Allah and be able
Wow.
to explain. Choose your choices. You're just going to have to explain, why did you do it the way that you did it? So if somebody can say, we didn't do this invitation because the food was too spicy, well, then why don't you just put less spice in your food? Why don't you get to a place where you eat something that's a little bit different? Why don't you get to a place where you put yourself in check and recognize, right? Like our Prophet, alayhi salam, there's literal hadith, the Sahaba are in tears because say the marks on his back from sleeping on straw mats and thinking about the comparison of what the rulers of Persia and Rome are in opulence and luxury. But essentially, what are they saying? I wouldn't invite the Prophet of God to my kid's wedding because he came from less wealth than I come from,
Wow.
right? And what is it telling you about your heart? And the crazy thing is, you actually believe that that person is going to benefit somehow by you bringing them to you, when in reality, you need them more than anything to be able to break the hardness that's around your heart. Because how you see someone isn't telling you about who they are, but how you see someone is telling you a lot about yourself. May Allah protect us from this type of arrogance because it's crazy, you know. But that socialization has to get broken up. You bring people to a place where we're calling them to something, to have them think about things that they might not think about so much, to break out of these ideas that they create as absolutes and say, no, man, you're going to one day move beyond this world. That's definitely, this worldly existence is real, but it's still proportional to a world that comes beyond this one. And where and how you are in a place of being able to think about, like, why are only certain people allowed the blessing of your company? Why do certain people only get to be eating a meal at your home? And you want to flip the switch, right? Like where our teachers tell us, the ajr is in and of itself, the that you're making the dua, that in and of itself is showing you like where you're at and that it's accepted, right? But the opposite of that is also there too, right? That you might think that you're choosing not to make dua, but the punishment in and of itself is the fact that you're not making the dua to begin with. And you
Wow.
shift the paradigm to not think like, I'm choosing to not have these people come and eat in my home. But the reality could potentially be that Allah is protecting those people from being in the presence of a heart that is able to identify somebody over things such as the amount of money they have or they don't have, or the language they speak or they don't speak, or the color of their skin. It's insane. How can you have a masjid in the United States of America where 30% of slaves, at a minimum statistic, likely even more, that were brought here were Muslim? And Islam has existed in Black communities for generations. How can you have a masjid that doesn't have people that are coming from a convert background, people who are Latino, who are Spanish, who are coming from whatever background in the United States of America at this point in time? How is that fundamentally possible that no one has walked into your facility that comes from a different walk of life when there's such diversity around us? Then are you really bringing into existence a house of Allah, right? Or is it something that's just like a place for you to hang out with your buddies, which is fine. Like you could do that, but that's not the way this deen functions fundamentally. And if your heart's not comfortable around somebody because you are different from them in some capacity, then you got to be able to sit. And that's why you need the company of the righteous more
Wow.
than anyone. so that you get off of your high horse and you can really sit down and think like, what is going on with me that I can't be with people? And it's different, right? Being in a place where you have companionship, for us to identify these words, acquaintances, friends, companions, whatever, when people go through self actualization, right? They're going to get to a place that as you get to know yourself more, the number of people you're going to spend time with is going to lessen and decrease as you get older, because you're going to know who you want to spend time with. When my kids go to school, your kids go to school, they can have like a recess type engagement where they go from groups of friends to other groups of friends and other groups of friends, but they don't really know themselves fully. They're still trying to learn who they are. So you're going to know at the end of the day, like as I get older, it's going to narrow to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I'm going to want to take the time I have to be with these types of people. Nobody's saying you have to be everybody's best friend, but we're saying you have to have a fundamental respect for someone.
Wow.
And if you can somehow believe that there's people by virtue of their background being someone just because of where they come from, you couldn't benefit from them, like that's a problem to see the world in that way and think in that way. You don't have to be their friend, but you believe that somehow then you're better than them in some way. How is that anything other than like a shaitani mode of thinking and thought? And I think as there's more movement and being able to recognize where it is, people can have their spaces. My great great grandfather, if he was Muslim, probably didn't speak English. He needs to have a space that reflects his reality, can meet his needs and cultural nuances. And it's hard to create spaces that have everybody kind of fit in, but there has to be some of these things. And some people have to be thinking in those capacities, do you know? And that's where the Quran is important, right? Just like the verse you quoted, you got to tell people they need to have fear of Allah around these kinds of things to really be able to dig deep and say, like, what do you think this deen is about? That you can actually express comfortably that I don't think I'm inviting this person to this because they don't have as much money as I do, right? They don't have X, Y, or Z the way that I do, right? Like, have some fear of God, man. Like, how can you feel like no shame in making a statement like that? It's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's tough, the shaitan sometimes gets you from different angles. Sometimes he can't get you from missing prayer. Like, shaitan's goal is to take us to hell. It's clear. He's on the right. He's always going to be standing on the path to Jannah. He's not on the wrong path. That's his direction. Like, why is there so many speed bumps on this path to Jannah? Because shaitan made those. And like that's why there are there. And one of those subtle ways of shaitan and getting us is by justifying our arrogance, not seeing the presence of different people and ignoring their presence. People can tell. It's enough for a person's destruction to look down at someone. You know, family members, brothers, sisters. Different races to look
Yeah.
down. Someone's from a different part of the world because they look different, they dress different, they can't speak Arabic or they can't read the Quran well, and we look down at them. S- You know, this is not a reason to look down at someone. You never know a person who just knows La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That one Sahabi, Usayrim, um, came to Uhud or one of the battles, became Muslim, and he passed away. He joined the battle in the morning. Before Dhuhr, he passed away. And the Prophet ﷺ said, man, this guy, دخل Jannah ولم يصلي صلاة واحدة.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
crazy, right? Just think about it.
Think about,
You know what I'm
think about
saying?
what Quran he knew, nothing.
Yeah.
He just became Muslim, served the Prophet, died to enter Jannah without one salah.
Yeah. Somehow.
Not one salah. And so it's really important that I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying no one. Nowhere should anyone understand that I'm saying don't pray. What I'm saying is don't judge. That's
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. And how can the Sahaba say, well, this guy hasn't even prayed one salah? He's going to bury it. No, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't look at the appearance. In Allah la yanzur ila suwarikum wa la ila ajsamikum walakin yanzur ila qulubikum wa a'malikum. Looks at the heart, looks at the actions. And it's such a good feeling, even for our children, to be around different people for our own growth, to see what people. The moment that Prophet ﷺ had a different person in a very similar society like Medina, something great happened, and that's called Khandaq. Salman Farsi is from Persia. 10,000 people are coming. Prophet was like, what are we going to do? One different person gave one different opinion that saved Medina,
Yes, Paula.
right? Like, and the Prophet took it. Do you know how many different people have such great different opinions that make great differences in the Muslim community? That's what it is. So it's, this is why we need to make intention, like you said, like a intended effort of meeting different people in our community, especially the converts, making good righteous friends. Be the righteous friend. Sometimes, like a lot of times, I wish I can find the best friend. Well, maybe you could be the best friend,
Hmm.
and you can have those qualities that people are looking for in a best friend. Honesty, integrity, keeping their secrets. So may Allah SWT make us people like that,
I mean,
because this country and the world is calling us a lot towards challenging times, whether it's through technology, social media, friends. Look, open your Instagram, right? And see all of our friends on Facebook and Instagram. Like, I mean, how much is this good for us in akhirah? You know, a lot of them are cheering us on in our successes, and a lot of them are hating on us when we're succeeding. Is that type of friend we want? So Shafi صحبت الناس ما لهم عدد وكنت أحسب أني قد ملأت يدي. He's like, I have a lot of friends. I should think everyone follows me. But when I tested them, فلما بلوت أخلاء وجدتهم كالدهر في الغدر لم يبقوا على أحد. And the moment I started to kind of examine their friendship and loyalty, I found them disloyal like time. إن غبت عنهم فشر الناس يشتمني. When I was absent, the best of those people were talking bad about me. They would rejoice over my difficulties. When مرضت فخير الناس لم يعدي. And when I was sick, the best people in the community never asked about me, never came to visit me. وإن رأوني بشر سرهم نكدي. And when they saw me in difficulty, apparent difficulty, it rejoiced them. They couldn't hide their smile, that they knew I was suffering. وإن رأوني بخير ساءهم فرحي. And when they saw me happy and they saw me succeeding, you could tell they were not happy. Right? Is this the type of friends we want? This is toxic energy. And
yeah.
that's why, we go back to the Salihin. What is the epitome of, of a friendship is that their hearts are clean and they want good for you. And the best offering a friend can offer, it's not just a glass of water, it's a glass of Kawthar, which
Hmm.
is Jannah.
Wow.
That's the best offering a friend can offer you. Like, I know what you're doing. You want this, but be really, truly, I'm your friend. الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين. These are the true friends on the day of judgment. No one's gonna have any relationships except for real friends. Those real friends are gonna be sitting on, you know, they're gonna be sitting on recliners. وَقَبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. They're going to be sitting on recliners, in الأبرار على الأرائك ينظرون تعرف
Hmm.
في وجوههم نظرة النعيم. You're going to see in the faces of these blessed people this glow. نظرة means this freshness. نعيم. تعرف في وجوههم نظرة. يسقون من رحيق مختوم. And in this gathering, they'll be served from the wine and the rivers of Jannah. And then it just ختامه مسك. And the endings of the gatherings and the drinks and the fruits, that it gets better as it comes to a conclusion. Like, these gatherings get better. Like, it's in this dunya. The more you sit in a pious person's gathering, the better it gets. Like, you feel like
Yeah.
you never. That's a feeling of Jannah. ختامه مسك. And then it says, وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسون. This is where we should be competing for. I'm competing to be in good company. ومزاجه من تسنيم. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq. Two things that we should, I think I would share. Maybe you can add more, Shaykh Imam. One is that we should aspire to find good company around us. Better people, even a better person in a certain trade is better for us and our growth. Number two is what you said, more welcoming to different people. Because if we're not welcoming others in our circles, then we're not growing the community of the Prophet ﷺ the way the
Absolutely.
Prophet built Medina. So that was very profound of you, Imam. If there's anything you'd like to say as we conclude this gathering virtually, it's such a, when you speak, it's like watching pearls, just fall off a bead. so eloquent, so beautiful, and so inspirational, very knowledgeable. Also, when you came to Miftah, remember a few months ago, we were sitting on the where was it? We were sitting on a panel, and I started mimicking you, and you made
I
fun of me.
know. Yeah, no, I miss you guys, man. We were there all the time.
You're like you're like this guy actually practiced my voice, you know.
So,
It's not. We just hear you so much; it's kind of ingrained in our minds. But go ahead, Imam, if you want to say some closing words. And honestly, before you even say something, I just want to tell you how grateful I am to have you join us. The work that you've done for, I hate to say this because you don't take pride in the work you've done. You're just so grateful as a humble person, but as a chaplain for NYU, chaplain for NYPD, serving the Muslim community, serving the vulnerable community, living the eye of the apple, right in the city, serving the community. Everyone wants to come to New York for achieving glory in their dunya, accomplishments of careers, and you can see the whole economical world trying to compete there. And here you are sitting there, carrying the banner of Islam, speaking on behalf of the Muslim community. The eye of the Muslim communities are always on New York because New York is a major community, and the major community eye of the world is on Imam Khalid. And we are so proud that we have such a representative from the Muslim community sitting in New York, speaking on behalf of us. Major times where there's terrorist attacks, complex situations, dealing with these major issues that you are on the ground, mental health, women abuse, right? All these issues that you're tackling that most of us don't even get time to even think about. And you've created movements, opportunities, care facilities for these people, even the foster care, that Muslim foster care, where Muslims families are being divided, and this kid is going to a non-Muslim family. I mean, who goes into this as much as it takes a lot of time because you're chasing the government, you're chasing state, different organizations, and you can see everything is working against the Muslim child. It's against it. And then finally you fight for the Muslim child to be in a Muslim house, and the Muslim house is not ready. Right? Then you look bad because you did all this, you use all your connections, you promised to commit and deliver, and and it ends up back in a Christian's house or an atheist house or a Hindu's house. So these are really difficult things that you're doing. I feel like we are teaching the work, like on paper, we're teaching the text, but you are walking the text on the streets of New York. So may Allah give you more strength and continue to do what you do. And we look forward to having you in Michigan. And not only in Michigan, wherever we go as Miftah, different states, we want you to be with us, inshallah.
Yeah, it's my honor and privilege, and I appreciate the kind words. Please, keep me in your du'as, and you all, your brothers, your family, you're always in my prayers, mashallah. It's always a blessing to be able to be with you all.
Someone's saying we need to come to New York. So if we came to New York last time. So
we're coming, you guys. We're doing a program with Miftah at NYU on October 22nd, inshallah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, your brother might not have told you yet.
I'm sitting at my brother's desk right now, and I'm looking at some of the things he wrote here. This is his desk, and I'm not, and I'm reading some of the things, and my mind is not happy right now because, and I'm like, what? This I don't know about this. So I'm kind of seeing his cheat notes on what's happening.
Oh man!
And it says, I'm not gonna say what is. So it says tasks, right? On the paper. I want to cover it for the screen, and I'm like, what? This is not what I agreed to, right? Like, and then you're telling me that we're coming to New York for October 22nd.
Yeah.
What are we doing there?
We're gonna do one of those mini conferences, I think.
Wow. So at NYU.
At NYU, yeah.
Do you know the speakers?
Not yet. I think we're finalizing some. Actually, I think some are finalized, but we'll announce it when you all are ready to announce it.
Oh, we're so excited. I mean, who cares who's coming? You're there, and I hope I can make it. October is a busy month, already. It's so much.
You guys need to rest. I tell your brother all the time. I look at him.
I'm telling you, this man, mashallah, we drove from Detroit to Toronto last week on Thursday, got on the flight, landed in London at 9:10, got our luggage. Our rides came. We had to go to two opposite communities for Jummah. One was East and one was West London.
Mm.
Traveling 17 miles in London is hour 20 minutes. Like you could rather walk in London than take. I think they should just ban cars,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have everybody just take city transportation. It just be faster, and make better transportations to commute like that. And in the middle of the way, we realize we're going opposite directions. Then two of us get off at a gas station, and we take an Uber to one side of the city.
Mm.
We get there, then we get back to our evening program. The evening program, East London, and it doesn't stop. Next day, Manchester. We didn't eat and sleep well in London and Manchester. We just didn't have time, And if somebody, you really, I didn't even think about going to see the Big Ben and the bridge and all the, the different beautiful attractions in London. I don't think we had time to do that.
Mm.
And the one thing that my wife asked me is to bring a souvenir from England, right? And I got to the airport. We hardly made our flight, and usually I buy souvenirs when I don't have time at the airport, like just buy a magnet or something, right? I don't know how the Heathrow Airport functions, because for like hundreds and thousands of feet, I don't see a store. There's no restaurant. Like in America, like every few feet, there's like a gift
Oh
shop.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, what kind of airport is this?
No, man. Yeah, the last time I was there, actually, I just remembered. I forget how many years ago it was, but I have a lot of issues sometimes flying,
Yeah,
and
security issues.
these guys were going through my stuff, and his brother had given me a bunch of books, and one of them was, I think, a text that had been published some time ago that was a fatwa on, terrorism in some capacity,
Oh my gosh.
and so it's in my suitcase. These guys are going through my suitcase. There's a book, and just in big letters it says like fatwa Islam terrorism. And so the guy who opened it, his eyes just popped open. He didn't know what to do. He was frozen. So I walked over to him. I was like, "Hey man, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it." And then he called his supervisor over.
That's
And,
in London?
huh?
That's in
This was
London?
in Heathrow Airport. When you're saying Heathrow, I was thinking, when was the last time I was there? Because I'm picturing it the way you're describing it.
I don't take books from people when I travel.
Yeah.
I don't take books from people. I don't take fatwas. Someone came, gave me a fatwa book on some moon side. I don't take anything from people.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Taking a book that I haven't read, written by, like, I'm not saying America and Canada and England are different, but like, we have to be very careful what we're traveling with.
Oh
Because
yeah, definitely.
someone such a good person like you with good intention probably took the book. Nothing wrong in the book, but just the title gets you in trouble.
Oh yeah. No, they were good about it. It was something that.
Once I was given a book in Pakistan. It was on grammar,
Mm.
right? It was sarf, morphology, and syntax. And the author gave me the books. He had beautiful work that he's done. But every like 10 pages, there was like either a shield, a sword, or an arrow.
That's all you need.
Just that's what they do with grammar. But like, I just remember because of the story. And every few pages, he had a shield, sword, or like some type of weapon,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know why. Maybe it was to like it was the design of the book just to cover one page, and like he did that. And the author was gracious to show me the book, and he said, wait a minute. Before I give you the book, let me see the book one more time." And he rips out like 5 pages just with those pictures on it. He's like, even these shields and these grammar, they might trouble you when you get to America. I'm like, yeah, this is 2006, 2008.
Oh
Not
yeah.
at the right time. I'm like, just take it out, because anything gives them any voice, they feel like they will use it against us. And
Oh, that's not a joke. I think the funniest one for me was a friend of mine and I drove from Toronto to Buffalo, and we got stopped at the border for like 5-6 hours. And this was back in the day, so he had a CD,
Mm.
and I think there was some like Nasheed group or a lecture series or something, but in marker it was written, the soldiers of Islam was
Oh my
like written all
gosh.
over it. So these guys found the CD. They're like, "What is this thing?" And I was like, I don't know, but we got out. Alhamdulillah, we're here right now. So
I mean, I don't open up the stories, but once I one second, it's thundering here. Can you hear the rain?
a little bit, yeah, it's
Should I
fine.
leave the window open or should I close it?
I don't know
Yeah, I'll leave it open.
yeah.
So once I was coming back from Canada through Detroit, Windsor, and at the Ambassador Bridge, I get pulled over, and sorry about this. The guy who was driving me is the nicest person in the world. He wouldn't even whack a fly. A fly sits on his head. Ahlan wa sahlan, baby. A bee comes, ahlan wa sahlan, sting me. That's the type of guy he is. He's so pure. He's sitting in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat. Four guards come in with guns, fully armed, not like just normal security, like fully heavy duty security. They say, "Sir, get out of your vehicle," right, in a strong white accent, right? And so he's like shivering. Put your hand where we can see it. Now this guy knows he doesn't even know where to put his hand because he's never been pulled over before. So he's putting his hand like up, down there, and he puts it down there. Sir, don't make me like he's yelling at him, and it doesn't matter if you're yelling at someone with intimidation, you forget what you're supposed to do. I tell him, put your hand on the steering wheel. He puts his hand on the steering wheel. They literally drag him out of his car. They put him against the trunk of his car, head against the trunk, put his hands behind his back, yell at him. He does nothing. This guy is an innocent guy, right? Maybe his last name is Ahmed, which is maybe a reason. And God knows, right? Puts his hand in the back, takes him straight to the room, and I'm laughing. I just can't stop laughing. And the reason I'm laughing is I was like, this is the last guy who would ever do anything wrong. Like, he's such an innocent guy. And the other side of mine is like, oh, shoot, I'm in trouble because if there's anyone that's like talks a lot, acts hyper, that's me. I'm in trouble. So they come after me. They don't yell at me. They just come and say, sir, please get out of the car. They don't handcuff me. They take me into a dungeon. He's in a private brick room. I'm in a private brick room. All that's there is a urinal, right? So we're just sitting there. I'm sitting in my room. I'm worried about that guy. I was like, man, I hope he's alive. That's the last. I hope he's okay, And I hope he's not watching. He's a sheikh now. And we were both very young in our teens, late teens. And I sit there for 4 or 5 hours. 1 hour later, in those 4 hours, 1 hour later, someone comes like, sir, where are you going? I already answered those questions. But then again, who's your dad? Answer those questions. What's your family? Blah, blah. What do you do? 4 hours, just 2 visits by the officers. Sat there for 4 or 5 hours. They finally come in with a big box and they put it on my table. Slams it like that, right? I'm like, all right, try to intimidate me. It's like, sir, what's inside this box? And I'm like, I can't tell you because it's closed. They said, sir, came out of your car? What's in your box? Keep in mind, I wasn't driving the car, so it could be his box. It could be anyone's box, right? I don't want to say something that I'm not sure about. I'm like, sir, I'm not sure what's in this box. If you open it, I'll tell you what's inside the box. So I reach to open the box. He yells at me, says, sir, keep your hands away from the box. I'm like, brother, dude, I don't know what you want, but like, I can't tell you what's in this box without me opening the box. Then he allows me to open the box. And then I'm pulling out something from the box. He said, don't touch. I was like, well, do me a favor. Why don't you pull it out from the box, sir? So he pulls out a book. And on the book, it says, Al-Qaeda. You know the word Al-Qaeda?
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda Nuraniya. Right? And it says in English, Al-Qaeda, and then it says Nuraniya. And Arabic is Al-Qaeda Nuraniya, which is the alphabet book for learning Alif Ba Ta, But in Arabic, it goes the other way, Al-Qaeda Nuraniya. Urdu is Nurani Qaeda, right? Yeah. So he's like, sir, what's this? They thought there was like a manual of terrorism in this pamphlet or something. I'm like, I started laughing, like uncontrollable. Oh my gosh. He's like, sure, this is not funny. I'm like, this is really funny. He said, what's so funny? And I said, let me open the book. And he yells at me again. Says, sir, don't touch the book. I'm like, sir, I got to show you what's in the book so you can believe what I'm telling you. So I opened the book, and in Alif, it says A-L-F, right? It spells out Ba, B-A-A. So I said, I read it. I was like, do you read this, sir? He said, yeah. I said, these are the alphabets of the Arabic language. He was so, and he let me go, man. He had to let me go because there was really nothing to hold me back for.
Yeah.
May Allah guide that person and guide everyone that has a misunderstanding of the beautiful message of Islam. And it's our job as vessels to convey the most peaceful religion in the right manner, so people don't have these misunderstandings. Imam Khalid, thank you so much for your time. It's always great listening to you, talking to you. I can spend the whole night just looking at you and talking to you. But
it's good catching up. Jazakallah khair.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.